Ada thought the biggest mistake she made that night was telling her husband she might have regretted marrying him. But the real mistake had started long before that, because the woman Ada called her best friend had been quietly planting those doubts in her heart for months. And the moment Ada's marriage finally began to crack, Vanessa knew it was time to make her move. But what Vanessa planned to do next was something Ada never saw coming. You're watching African Stories That Touch. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat in her own apartment smiling. She had just finished a phone call with Ada, and everything was going exactly as she planned. For years, she had watched Ada live a life that Vanessa secretly wanted, not because of the money, but because of the love. Chinedu was the kind of man women rarely find. Loyal, hardworking, kind. The kind of man who would sacrifice anything for the woman he loved. Vanessa had dated many men, rich men, flashy men, men with expensive cars and loud confidence, but none of them had ever looked at her the way Chinedu looked at Ada, and that had always bothered her deeply. But now, she finally saw her opportunity. If Ada destroyed her own marriage, Vanessa would simply be there to pick up the pieces. The next step of her plan began quietly. Vanessa started visiting the couple more frequently. But this time, her attention shifted. Instead of talking only to Ada, she began talking more with Chinedu. At first, it seemed harmless. She would ask simple questions. How was work today? Traffic must have been terrible. You work very hard, Chinedu. Chinedu answered politely, but he kept his distance because something about Vanessa made him uncomfortable. He couldn't explain why, but his instincts whispered caution. One evening, while Ada was in the bedroom taking a phone call, Vanessa walked into the kitchen where Chinedu was washing dishes. "You know," she said casually, leaning against the counter, "you're a very good man." Chinedu kept washing the plates. "Thank you." Vanessa watched him closely. Not many men work this hard for their wives. Chinedu shrugged. "It's my responsibility." Vanessa smiled. "Ada is lucky." Chinedu nodded. "Yes." But then Vanessa said something that made him pause. "She just doesn't know it yet." Chinedu turned slowly. "What do you mean?" Vanessa sighed softly. "She complains about you sometimes." Chinedu's expression changed. "Complains?" Vanessa quickly waved her hand. "Oh no, nothing serious. Just normal wife complaints." Chinedu's chest tightened. "What does she say?" Vanessa pretended to hesitate. "Maybe I shouldn't say." Chinedu frowned. "Vanessa." She lowered her voice. "She thinks you are not ambitious enough." Chinedu stood still. "She says that?" Vanessa nodded sadly. "I try to defend you, but you know how women are." Chinedu felt something twist inside him, because for the past few weeks, Ada really had been complaining more. Now Vanessa's words felt like confirmation. A quiet wedge had just been pushed between husband and wife, and Vanessa knew it. That night, when Ada came to bed, Chinedu asked carefully, "Ada, are you unhappy with me?" Ada looked surprised. "What kind of question is that?" "Vanessa said you complain about me." Ada froze. "She said that?" Chinedu nodded. Ada's anger rose immediately. "Why is she telling you my private conversations?" Chinedu frowned. "So it's true?" Ada sat up. "That's not the point." But the damage had already been done. The argument that followed was louder than any they had ever had before. Voices rose, accusations flew, and by the time silence returned to the apartment, something fragile between them had cracked. Vanessa's trap was working perfectly, because once a third person successfully enters a marriage, the destruction rarely stops halfway. But Vanessa wasn't finished, not even close, because the next step of her plan would be the one that would finally shatter Ada's world. And when the truth finally came out, Ada would realize too late that the enemy she had been fighting all along was sitting right beside her, smiling. After that night, the atmosphere inside Ada and Chinedu's apartment changed completely. The warmth that once filled the small home slowly disappeared. Conversations became shorter. Laughter became rare. Even simple things like dinner held heavy with tension. Ada stopped waiting for Chinedu before eating. Chinedu stopped telling her stories about his day. They were living in the same house, but slowly drifting into different worlds. And somewhere in the middle of that growing distance stood Vanessa, watching, waiting, encouraging the storm. One evening, Vanessa invited Ada out for drinks. They met at a quiet lounge in Lekki. Soft music played in the background. Ada sat across from her friend, looking tired. Vanessa noticed immediately. "You look stressed," she said. Ada sighed deeply. "Chinedu and I argued again yesterday." Vanessa leaned forward, pretending to be concerned. "What happened this time?" Ada shook her head. "I don't even know anymore." Vanessa nodded slowly. "That's how it usually starts." Ada frowned. "What do you mean?" Vanessa took a slow sip of her drink. "Sometimes, relationships simply reach their limit." Ada stared at her. "You think my marriage has reached its limit?" Vanessa shrugged slightly. "Ada, you're young. You're beautiful. You can start again if you want." Ada's heart skipped. "Start again?" "Yes," Vanessa spoke softly. "There are men out there who can give you the life you deserve." Ada looked down at her drink. Part of her wanted to reject the idea immediately. But another part, the part that had been listening to Vanessa for months, was no longer so sure. That same night, Chinedu was sitting alone in the apartment. He had finished work early and returned home hoping to talk to his wife, to fix things, to understand what was going wrong. But Ada had texted him, "I'm out with Vanessa." He stared at the message for a long time, then slowly placed his phone on the table. For weeks, he had tried to ignore a growing suspicion. Something about Vanessa didn't feel right. Her constant visits, her strange comments, the way she sometimes looked at him when Ada wasn't watching. But Chinedu was a patient man. He didn't want to accuse anyone unfairly. Still, the feeling refused to disappear, and that night it became stronger. 2 days later, Vanessa visited again. Ada had gone to the market to buy groceries. Chinedu was home alone. When the doorbell rang, he opened it expecting his wife. Instead, Vanessa stood there. "Oh," she said with a bright smile. "Ada isn't home yet?" Chinedu shook his head. "She went to the market." Vanessa hesitated for a moment. Then she stepped inside anyway. "That's okay," she said. "I'll wait." Chinedu felt uncomfortable but remained polite. Vanessa sat on the sofa while Chinedu stood near the kitchen. The silence stretched awkwardly between them. Finally, Vanessa spoke. "Chinedu, can I ask you something honestly?" Chinedu nodded cautiously. "What is it?" Vanessa leaned forward. "Are you happy in your marriage?" The question surprised him. "Yes." Vanessa tilted her head. "Even though Ada complains about you all the time?" Chinedu's jaw tightened. "Marriage has challenges." Vanessa sighed softly. "You're such a good man." Then she stood and walked closer to him. Too close. "Ada doesn't appreciate you the way she should." Chinedu stepped back immediately. "Vanessa," but she continued speaking quietly. If I had a husband like you. She let the sentence hang unfinished. Chinedu's expression hardened. That's enough. Vanessa blinked innocently. What? You are crossing a line. Vanessa smiled slowly. Am I? Chinedu's voice became firm. You are Ada's friend. Vanessa shrugged. Yes. Then she whispered. But maybe I should have been more. The meaning behind her words was unmistakable. Chinedu felt anger rise inside him. Stop this nonsense! Vanessa laughed softly. Relax. I was only being honest. At that exact moment, the front door opened. Ada walked inside carrying grocery bags. She froze when she saw them standing close together. What's going on here? Vanessa turned instantly, her expression changing to shock. Ada! Her voice trembled dramatically. I was just leaving. But Ada had already noticed the distance between them. The tension, the strange look on Chinedu's face. What happened? Ada demanded. Vanessa lowered her eyes. Nothing. Ada, please don't misunderstand. But the way she said it only made things worse. Ada's heart began racing. Misunderstand what? Vanessa hesitated again. Then she whispered softly. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. Ada's voice rose. Say what? Vanessa looked at Chinedu, then back at Ada, and finally spoke the lie that would explode everything. Ada, your husband just told me he's tired of the marriage. The room fell silent. Chinedu stared at her in disbelief. I never said that. But Ada had already dropped the grocery bags. Her eyes filled with anger. You told my best friend you're tired of me? Chinedu shook his head quickly. That's not true. Vanessa stepped back, pretending to be distressed. Please don't fight because of me. Ada turned toward her husband. Is it true or not? Chinedu looked directly at her. You know me better than that. But the poison Vanessa had planted for months had already grown deep roots. Ada's trust was fragile now, and fragile trust breaks easily. You're lying, Ada whispered. Chinedu's heart sank. After everything we've been through, you believe this? Vanessa quietly slipped toward the door. I think I should go. And within seconds, she was gone, leaving behind chaos. That night, the argument between Ada and Chinedu became the worst they had ever had. Voices echoed through the apartment. Anger, accusations, pain. By midnight, Ada was packing a suitcase. Chinedu watched helplessly. You are really leaving? Ada zipped the bag. Maybe Vanessa was right. Chinedu felt something inside him break. So this is how our marriage ends? Ada paused at the door. For a moment, she hesitated, but Vanessa's voice echoed again in her mind. You deserve better. Without looking back, Ada walked out. And just like that, Vanessa believed she had finally won. But what she didn't know was that Chinedu had already started discovering the truth. And when that truth came out, Vanessa's entire plan would collapse in a way she never expected. When Ada walked out of the apartment that night, the silence she left behind felt heavier than any argument. Chinedu remained standing in the living room for a long time. The door was still slightly open. The wheels had left faint lines across the floor. For the first time since their wedding, the house did not feel like a home. It felt empty. But Chinedu was not the kind of man who accepted defeat easily. Something about what had happened that evening did not make sense. Vanessa's behavior, her sudden accusation, the way she rushed out immediately after, it all felt too convenient, too calculated.
And the more Chinedu thought about it, the more certain he became. Vanessa had been manipulating everything. Meanwhile, Ada spent the night at Vanessa's apartment. Vanessa welcomed her with open arms. "I am so sorry you are going through this," she said softly. Ada wiped her eyes. "I can't believe he would say something like that about me." Vanessa shook her head sympathetically. "Sometimes people show their true colors when they feel pressured." Ada sat quietly on the couch. Her heart felt heavy. But Vanessa continued gently feeding the fire. "Ada, maybe this separation is for the best." Ada looked up slowly. "What do you mean?" Vanessa smiled sadly. "Maybe it's time for you to move on with your life." Ada didn't answer. But Vanessa could see that the doubt was still alive inside her. And that was enough. Because in Vanessa's mind, everything was finally falling into place. Ada's marriage was broken, Chinedu was alone, and sooner or later, Vanessa believed she would step into the space Ada had left behind. But what Vanessa didn't know was that Chinedu had started asking questions. The next morning, he called one of Ada's close friends, Ngozi. Ngozi had known Ada and Vanessa for years. They had all attended university together. "Ngozi," Chinedu asked carefully, "can I ask you something honestly?" "Of course." "What do you think about Vanessa?" There was a long pause on the phone. Then Ngozi sighed. "Chinedu, I didn't want to say anything before, but that girl has always been jealous of Ada." Chinedu's grip tightened around the phone. "Jealous?" "Yes. She used to complain that Ada always had better luck with relationships. She even said once that Ada didn't deserve a man like you." Chinedu felt anger rising slowly. "And Ada never noticed?" Ngozi laughed bitterly. "Ada always trusted her too much." That was the moment everything became clear. Vanessa had not been helping their marriage, she had been destroying it, and Chinedu knew exactly what he needed to do next. 2 days later, he showed up at Vanessa's apartment. Ada opened the door. Her eyes widened in surprise. "Chinedu?" He looked calm. "We need to talk." Ada hesitated, but something about his expression made her step aside. Vanessa was sitting in the living room when he entered. For a moment, she looked slightly uncomfortable. Then she smiled politely. "Chinedu, what brings you here?" Chinedu looked directly at her. "I came to tell Ada the truth." Vanessa's smile flickered. "What truth?" Chinedu turned to Ada. "Ada, did Vanessa tell you what really happened that day in the kitchen?" Ada frowned. "What do you mean?" Chinedu's voice was steady. "She flirted with me." The room went silent. Vanessa's eyes widened instantly. "That's ridiculous." Chinedu didn't look at her. He continued speaking to Ada. "Ada, she told me you didn't appreciate me. She said if she had a husband like me, she would treat him better." Ada stared at Vanessa slowly. Vanessa shook her head. "He's lying." Chinedu calmly pulled out his phone. "I thought you might say that." He pressed play. A recording filled the room. Vanessa's voice echoed clearly. "If I had a husband like you, I would treat him much better." Vanessa's face went pale. Ada felt her heart drop into her stomach. Chinedu continued playing the recording. The entire conversation, every word, every sentence, every lie. By the time the recording ended, the truth was undeniable. Ada slowly turned toward Vanessa. Her voice trembled. "You tried to destroy my marriage." Vanessa opened her mouth, but no words came out, because for the first time, Her mask had completely fallen off. Ada, listen. But Ada stepped back. No. Her voice broke. You were my best friend. Vanessa's eyes filled with anger now. Yes, she snapped, and I was tired of watching you waste your life. Ada stared at her in disbelief. Waste my life? Yes. Vanessa's voice rose. You had everything. A husband who loved you, a peaceful home, while I kept meeting useless men who only cared about money. Her bitterness finally spilled out. You didn't deserve him. The room fell silent. Ada felt tears running down her face. All those years, all those memories, every laugh, every secret, all of it had been poisoned by jealousy. Vanessa grabbed her bag angrily. Fine, go back to your poor husband, but don't come crying to me when you realize I was right. And with that, she walked out, slamming the door behind her. Ada stood frozen in the middle of the room. Then, slowly, she turned toward Chinedu. I'm so sorry. Her voice trembled. I should have trusted you. Chinedu looked at her quietly. Pain still lingered in his eyes, but love was still there too. He said softly, Marriage isn't perfect, but we should never allow strangers to destroy it. Ada nodded through her tears. I almost lost everything. Chinedu gently took her hand. But you didn't. Weeks later, Ada and Chinedu slowly began rebuilding their relationship. Trust returned little by little. Peace returned. And one important lesson remained forever in Ada's heart. Because sometimes the most dangerous enemies in life are not the ones who openly hate us. They are the ones who smile beside us, pretending to be friends while secretly waiting for the moment our happiness begins to crumble. Moral lesson. Not every friend who advises you truly cares about your happiness. Some people are secretly jealous of the peace and love in your life. They will whisper doubts into your ears. They will magnify your partner's weaknesses. They will turn small problems into mountains. But their real goal is not to help you. Their goal is to see you lose what they secretly wish they had. Ada learned this lesson painfully because by the time she discovered Vanessa's jealousy, her marriage had almost been destroyed. So always remember this. Protect your home, guard your marriage, and never allow the voice of a jealous friend to become louder than the voice of the person who truly loves you. Because sometimes the enemy inside your circle is far more dangerous than the enemy outside it.
Thank you so much for watching. If you felt the drama, the emotions, and the lessons in this story, don't forget to hit that like button. Drop a comment below to tell us what you think about Ada and Chinedu's journey, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. And if you want more stories that touch the heart and teach meaningful lessons, check out our channel. We have plenty of tales full of love, betrayal, courage, and redemption waiting for you.